Your mind is the most powerful pharmacy in the world, and no one has told you about it like this. Hello, restless minds. Are you ready? Because today we're not just going to talk about a topic, we're going on a journey, a deep dive into one of the most fascinating mysteries of the human being, the placebo effect. And I know what you might be thinking. Oh yes, sugar pills. But I promise you, that's just the entryway. We're going to descend together level by level through the layers of this phenomenon. And when we return to the surface, your idea of the mind, the body, and reality itself will have changed forever. Do you dare? All right, let's start with level 1, the surface everyone knows. The most famous idea is this. You have a headache, someone gives you a pill they tell you is a very powerful painkiller, but in reality it's just sugar. And suddenly, poof, the headache lessens or disappears. That, in essence, is what most people know as the placebo effect. The belief in a treatment causes a real result. But this doesn't just happen with pills. Think about this. A small child falls, scrapes their knee, and runs crying their eyes out. Their mother or father kisses the wound and says, "There, the magic kiss will heal it." And the child almost instantly stops crying and goes back to playing. The kiss has no healing properties, right? But the ritual, the trust, and the affection do have an immediate effect on how the child perceives their own pain. And this is not new, not at all. The word placebo itself comes from Latin and means "I will please." Curiously, at first it had nothing to do with medicine. It was used in the Middle Ages to refer to professional mourners, people who were paid to go to a funeral to cry and sing laments, to please and present a good image to the deceased's family. They were, in a way, a false emotion to produce a real social effect. Over time, medicine adopted the term for those false cures that in some way pleased the patient and made them feel better. And the last basic point of this level is the power of context. Why do we trust a doctor more if they wear a white coat, have an impeccable office, and diplomas on the wall? All that theater, that setting, enormously enhances the placebo effect. It's not just the pill, it's the entire ceremony surrounding it. And the question is, why does something as superficial as a white coat or a framed piece of paper have an almost medicinal power over us? So here we have it. Sugar pills, healing kisses, the power of a setting. This is the tip of the iceberg, the version of the placebo effect that we've all heard of at some point. It's fascinating, yes, but it's just the facade of an immense and complex building. But if this is what we see on the surface, what secret engines are driving it underneath? What is really happening inside our brain and our body? It's time to dive in. Welcome to Level 2. Level 2, the hidden mechanisms. First revelation. Remember the sugar pill that takes away pain? It's not just psychological. By believing you're taking a painkiller, your brain releases its own natural painkillers. They're called endorphins. They are literally the morphine your own brain produces. They are extremely powerful endogenous opioids. So you don't imagine the pain going away. Your brain is actively blocking pain signals because you've given it the command to do so with your expectation. Now let's talk about an invisible rule that governs this: classical conditioning. Does Pavlov's dog salivating at the sound of a bell ring a bell? It's the same, but with your body. If for years you've taken a pill of a specific color and shape for pain and it has worked for you, your body creates an association. The brain learns that that pill means relief. Over time, you could take an identical but sugar pill and your brain would activate the relief response purely out of habit. It's like the smell of coffee in the morning. Even before drinking it, just smelling it starts to wake you up because your brain knows what's coming. Another key mechanism is a factory error in our brain called expectation bias. Our brain is not an objective observer of reality, rather it's a fan of its own opinions. If you firmly expect something to happen, like feeling better, your brain will actively search for any small signal that confirms that belief and ignore those that contradict it. It's not that you intentionally deceive yourself, it's that your brain is programmed to find what it expects to find. And this has deep roots. Think of the shamans and healers of ancient tribes. Their rituals weren't just superstition. They were incredibly elaborate ceremonies with chants, dances, herbal concoctions. All that spectacle created an extremely powerful expectation of healing in the mind of the sick person and the community. The modern doctor, with their coat, stethoscope, and technical language, is in a way the heir to that tradition. The ritual has changed, but its function of generating hope and expectation remains the same. And deep down, what human need does all this solve? The need for control. When we are sick or feel pain, we feel vulnerable, out of control. The placebo, the ritual, the treatment, it gives us a narrative. It gives us a feeling that we are doing something, that there is a path to recovery. It restores to our mind a sense of agency over our own body, and that feeling in itself is therapeutic. And here comes the last mechanism of this level, which changes everything, the evil twin of the placebo, the nocebo effect. If a positive expectation can heal, a negative one can harm. If a doctor gives you a sugar pill and tells you be careful, this might give you nausea, there's a very high probability that you will feel nauseous. This demonstrates that it's not a simple positive thinking. It's a neutral and extremely powerful mechanism. Your mind has the ability to modulate your body based on beliefs, both for better and for worse. So now we see it's not magic. There are real mechanisms at play. Brain chemistry like endorphins, learning through conditioning, biases in our brain, and a deep need for control. Understanding these hidden mechanisms doesn't strip away the mystery. On the contrary, it gives us an idea of the real power we have over our own biology. But if you thought we had everything clear by now, get ready, because this is where the story turns into real chaos. It's time to descend to level 3. Level 3, the chaos of reality. First major controversy, the ethics of the placebo. On one side, there are those who say, if a white lie can alleviate a patient's suffering without side effects, isn't it ethical to use it? The end justifies the means. But in the other corner are those who argue, never. The doctor-patient relationship is based on absolute trust. Using a placebo is a deception that destroys that trust. It's a huge debate with no easy answer. Now let me tell you a secret. There's a widespread myth that placebos can cure everything, even shrink tumors or stop degenerative diseases. The reality, according to most studies, is that placebos are incredibly effective for subjective symptoms, those your brain modulates: pain, fatigue, nausea, anxiety. But they cannot, for example, kill a virus or eliminate a cancerous cell. Why do we love believing the myth? Because it gives us the fantasy of absolute control, the idea that with our mind alone we can conquer any disease. It's a story too good not to want to believe. And here comes a paradox that drives scientists crazy. To approve a new drug, it must be shown to be better than a placebo. But the very act of participating in a clinical trial, the doctor's attention, the hope, the ritual of taking pills, creates an extremely powerful placebo effect. This means that sometimes the new and very expensive drug barely manages to outperform the placebo. It's like trying to measure the height of a wave in the middle of a tsunami. The measurement method itself alters what is being measured. And an objection few consider, is it ethical for an expensive placebo to work better than a cheap one? Because studies show that it does. A pill in an elegant box or a fake injection from a confident doctor work better than a simple pill. This forces us to ask something uncomfortable. Is it fair that our mind's self-healing ability is linked to symbols of status and economic power? Should hope have a price? And the way of viewing all this has changed over time. For decades, science considered the placebo effect nuisance noise, an obstacle that had to be eliminated from clinical trials to see the real effect of the drug. Today, the perspective has turned 180 degrees. Now it's seen as a fascinating window into the mind-body connection, a phenomenon to be studied and understood, not ignored. All this confronts us with a fundamental problem of the human condition, the thin line between healing faith and self-deception. The placebo works thanks to a form of self-deception. Is this a brilliant evolutionary tool to help us survive, or is it a bug, a flaw in our ability to perceive reality objectively? We have no answer. As you can see, this level is a mess. Ethical debates, popular myths, scientific paradoxes, and uncomfortable questions. The reality of the placebo is not a neat and tidy story. It's a reflection of the complex and fascinating chaos that is the human being. All right, you've survived the chaos. You've seen the debates and complexities. Now it's time to see the details that separate the curious from the true connoisseurs. Welcome to Level 4. Level 4, Expert Knowledge. First niche secret. Many cutting-edge researchers no longer use the term placebo effect. They prefer to call it the meaning response. The idea is that it's not the sugar pill that heals, but the meaning the patient attributes to the entire therapeutic act. It's a subtle but incredibly powerful idea. We heal through meaning. And now a technical detail. Where does this happen in the brain? Neuroscience has identified a key network. Imagine your brain has a CEO and an operations department. The CEO is the prefrontal cortex, the part that makes decisions and harbors beliefs like, this pill is going to cure me. This CEO gives an order to the operations department, which includes areas like the anterior cingulate cortex, which is like the thermostat for pain and emotions. This area, upon receiving the order, literally turns down the volume of pain signals reaching the brain. Belief turns into neurochemistry. And we need to talk about a secret hero in this story, Henry Beecher. He was an anesthesiologist in World War II. At the front, he ran out of morphine and in desperation began injecting wounded soldiers with a simple saline solution, telling them it was a powerful painkiller. And to his astonishment, it worked for many of them. It was he who, after the war, published the seminal article, the powerful placebo, and forced the scientific world to take this seriously. And there's a rebel view that's gaining traction. What if the placebo response isn't just psychological but also genetic? Studies suggest that some people have genetic variants, for example, in their dopamine receptors, the neurotransmitter for pleasure and reward, which make them much more susceptible to the placebo effect. Your ability to respond to hope could be, in part, written in your DNA. But the most counterintuitive detail of all is that of open-label placebos. Pay attention to this. Researchers give a group of patients a pill and tell them with complete honesty, this is a sugar pill, it has no active ingredients. However, studies show that placebos can activate self-healing processes. And the incredible thing is that even knowing it's a placebo, it still works. This demolishes the idea that deception is necessary. And here comes the aha moment. That last discovery, the honest placebo, connects everything. It shows us that the meaning response we mentioned earlier is the true driver. It's not deception. It's the ritual of taking a pill, the trust in the authority figure who gives it to you, and the hope of getting better that activates the brain mechanisms we saw in the previous level, such as the release of endorphins. Meaning is more powerful than deception. Reaching this level of detail isn't just about accumulating data. It's about understanding that the world, and especially ourselves, are much more complex and fascinating than meets the eye. It's about gaining a more authentic view of how we function. We have reached the limit of what is known for certain. We have explored the mechanisms, the debates, and the secrets. Do you dare to look beyond, towards the final frontier, where there are only questions and wonder? Welcome to Level 5. Level 5, the final frontier. First speculative idea, the personalized placebos of the future. Imagine using virtual reality to create a perfect healing environment for a patient, or using neurofeedback to train a person to activate their own endorphin pathways at will. We could have placebo gyms where people learn to boost their self-healing response without the need for drugs or deception. And now the deepest question science cannot answer. How exactly does the translation occur? What is the exact bridge between an immaterial phenomenon like a belief or an expectation and a physical, measurable change in the biology of a cell? How does information become matter? That is the black hole at the center of all biology and consciousness. This leads to a mind-blowing philosophical implication. If our experience of reality, including our own body, is a construct of our brain, and the placebo demonstrates that we can consciously alter that construct with physical results, what does objective reality mean? Perhaps we are not passengers in our body, but the pilots, even if we have forgotten how to operate the controls. Mastering this phenomenon could be key to the future of humanity. Think about the opioid crisis, the management of chronic diseases, mental health. If we could teach people to reliably use this internal pharmacy, we could reduce suffering on a global scale and evolve towards medicine that treats the whole person, their mind, and their history, not just their symptoms. And here's the final, most provocative idea. What if the placebo effect isn't a strange or secondary effect? What if it's the human body's default operating system? Perhaps all medicine, from ancient herbs to modern pharmacology, works in part because it hacks and leverages this fundamental self-healing system based on belief and meaning. Perhaps the placebo is not the exception, but the rule. And with that idea, our descent has ended. We have traveled from the surface to the deepest, most speculative core of the mystery. Now, with this 5-level perspective, it's time to look at the whole picture again. Do you remember at the beginning of our journey, we talked about a simple sugar pill that takes away a headache? It seemed like a nice trick, didn't it? And now here we are at the end, contemplating that this simple pill is actually a key that unlocks the operating system of our biology, a place where belief turns into chemistry, hope has a neuronal signature, and meaning can reshape our physical reality. We've gone from seeing a magic trick to glimpsing the human being's source code. And now I ask you directly, of this entire journey, of all these levels, what idea, what revelation has impacted you the most? What piece made you say, wow? I want to know. Leave your thoughts in the comments because this dialogue is the most important part. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time and curiosity. And if you're passionate about these deep dives into knowledge, subscribe because we have many more mysteries to explore together. See you on the next ascent.